And me pointing out the whole create that quality list and know what you're looking for, that's me trying to provide wisdom. If you know you want to be with somebody, if you know you want to get married, if you know you want to build a family one day, it sort of behooves us to then act intentionally. So make sure you're screening these people out based on what you know you need. And the first step is you got to know what you need. Because if you don't know, then you definitely can't explain it or express it to anybody else.
But I think dating and sex is probably a very interesting place to think about this because it's changing field as far as like what people expect of each other.
I date in New York City a lot, and dating-wise, there's a lot that's like asked of a man. Like first dates are like nightmares.
I've got a question on that, yeah.
Dude, it's like, I'm like, what do you want? They got like a checkbox, like, are you gonna pick me up? Are you gonna walk on the outside of the sidewalk? Are you gonna open the door? Are you gonna pull out the seat? Are you gonna pay for the meal? Are you gonna be interesting during the dinner? Are you gonna be funny during the dinner? And then when you walk home, are you gonna drop me off? Are you gonna watch me walk inside? And then are you gonna text me after? And it's like trying to defuse a bomb. Like if you think you're like red wire, blue wire, and you're like one little thing and you're just done. And it's like, I'm to the point where I'm like, I'm so tired of like paying $150 for a first date and then you just ghost me. And the next week I'm like hurting for cash. I'm like, I could have really used that $150. Like, why did I have to, you know what I'm saying?
The trade-off of like going on a date.
Alex, I'm curious. Have you ever had an experience like that at all before?
I'm very careful. And I will say, I can really like relate to where he's coming from though. And it's part of why I haven't even like bothered in any form of like dating and since like 2019 or something.
Okay.
Like, I mean, part of it is it's not very feasible right now, but part of it is I really just don't want to for similar reasons that he's giving.
Yeah.
Because I've had like this same general like expectations put on me, and it does get kind of exhausting at times when it's. I'm not saying everybody's gonna have those same limitations.
Yeah.
But if it's just like me personally, it gets really exhausting having to even just think, like worry about whether that's going to even be a possibility. And it's just like, for me right now, it's just like, it's a stress that I don't think the benefits outweigh this. I guess, even if it's nice, it's just not worth the stress for me right now.
Fair. So it's completely fair, man. I mean,
I don't want to like that to come out wrong saying that all women are stressful, but just based off of my past life experiences and where I am at right now, just with my life and where I am trying to go, it's not a high priority, and it's a stress that I don't necessarily need in my life at this exact moment. But it would, yeah.
No, that's fine, right? Like you can totally be at that place. I mean, you're young, you're trying to figure things out, you're focusing on yourself, which I think those are great things to do, especially as men, you know, because we have a lot of, as that man pointed out, a lot of expectations, you know, that get bestowed upon us. And I can definitely appreciate his frustration. And I kind of grew up a little bit more before his time and your time. So I feel like I understood a little bit more about what those expectations look like in terms from a traditional sense. But I can definitely appreciate that it can feel overwhelming, especially as a man, to be the one, especially when you talk about things like dating traditionally, is to have to initiate all the time. And he talked about, you know, ghosting. So feeling like I'm investing in something that I don't really get a benefit from, which is getting to know this person still. And I can definitely appreciate where that comes from. So I think it's again, it's part of this very nuanced discussion that we're trying to have. And we're not saying like, oh, you shouldn't expect these things to happen, because the expectations will be there. That's traditionally kind of how women treat men. But what I say is I think we can do a better job on both sides, men and women, to communicate what those expectations are off the bat, right off the bat. Because if you understand that, like he said, the word bomb, it kind of diffuses it immediately. Because I understand, okay, what is she looking for? Well, what am I looking for? Let's put that on the table right off the bat, right? Because if we're not on the same page, then we can respectfully say, you know what? Okay, let's go our separate ways. No harm, no foul. So we don't have to worry about investing so much energy into that situation. However, if we do what a lot of us have done, which is trying to figure it out, that's kind of like, I feel like what he was trying to describe, right? That's very difficult. That can be very frustrating and then can lead to being overwhelmed because I don't really know exactly how this is supposed to work. I'm just sort of learning through failure multiple times, and that can demoralize you to a point where, you know, you just kind of give up. So,
Yeah, I 100% agree.
okay.
And as the man being like, oh, this sucks, I have to pay, or as the woman being like, oh, this sucks, I might get murdered, is like a pretty big, imbalance.
On a first date, should the man or whoever identifies as the man on the date pick up the check? Show of hands, who thinks yes?
Yeah, should is a weird.
Yeah,
should's a weird way to put it.
Okay,
That was
sorry.
weird.
How would you put it?
I very much love gender roles. I like masculine men, and I want my masculine man to pick the check up. My friends seem to be the same. My girlfriends seem to want that as well. But I have a male friend who was naturally doing that, and with the dates he was going on with women, they were offended that he took the check. So I think hey, if this woman doesn't want him to pay and she wants to show she can pay, go off.
I think it's a matter of preference. If someone picked it up for you, you develop a kind of rapport, respect with that person. So be it. If the other person, the woman you're with doesn't want that, then maybe it's not the match for that person. So I think it's dependent on the situation.
I think that there's such a thing as financial abuse. And men seem a lot of time, because they spend, that a woman has to be under them or owes them something.
I think that's when you get toxic.
Me personally, I love to take care of my partner. I love that feeling that I give them, that they're taken care of when they're with me. And that's when it's with friends, anybody. If you're with me, I got you.
I guess what I'm hearing from you, Andre, is that there's a lot of pressure to inhabit the masculine side of the social expectation, and yet you might not get the benefit that you would have expected generations ago, and that puts you in a weird position.
Yeah, well, we live in a city where there's 8 million people, and a lot of these girls, especially if you're really attractive, guys are hitting on them all day, so they feel like celebrities. You got so many options. I don't blame you. I'd be the same way. It becomes
Go with somebody better.
I think technology has a big part to do with that now. Modern times, online dating, Instagram.
Especially as a girl, you're gonna have 30 DMs a day.
Yeah, the
You know what I'm saying? Swipe it up on your picture.
I think
every day.
that's a big reason why it can be tougher for some men.
Not successful.
I think what he's saying is
successful.
there's a toxicity to femininity as well. There is a toxic side to both genders.
Well,
on
I
the
think
flip
anybody
side-
can be narcissistic, but I think that it's weird to randomly attribute that to women in New York because they're being complimented all day.
There's a term, it's called absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, but that is, when we're talking about masculinity, that's what we've had. We've typically had that. We can do whatever we want, and we do it because we squeeze, we corrupt, we take. Historically, you take over things, places that you don't like, and you rape the women, and you take the gold, and you do what you want because you have that power. Now, when we see women have that power, we're like, whoa, she's literally just getting a taste of the power that men have had for centuries.
But on the flip side of this perspective of dating, of the poor guy who goes on these dates and gets ghosted and it's a struggle to date, on the other side of that is men have more sex, men cheat more, they have more affairs. So if I'm a woman and I'm looking for a guy, I would be really selective. I would have a list of what I was looking for, and the guy would have to meet those standards and they would be high.
That's another great point that I want to echo real quick, because I talk about that a lot too when it comes to dating and it goes back to the point I was making before about communicating clearly what your expectations are, because then you have less likely you're going to get frustrated, is if you're dating intentionally. So for example, if I try to use you in this example, you were saying, yeah, I'm not trying to do that right now because I'm trying to focus on me, my education, my career, things that you want to build for yourself, right? And I think that that's great. Because then whenever you are ready, you're going to be in a great position to communicate exactly what you need and what you're looking for. And if that person does not match that, then I imagine you will, respectfully pull back. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair. That's fair to say. Yeah, just
Okay.
like even just in past relationships, I've like had my fair share. So like I have more of an idea of what is important to me
Mm-hmm.
and what I look for in a partner.
Right.
And as long as anybody that I may try and meet in the future is like say, and they just like saying don't fit the criteria seems like such a negative way of putting it. Like, oh, you didn't
Mhm.
make the cut, you're not good enough. Which like I mean, like if you want to go technicality, technically no, but like I don't think it's doesn't have that ill intent. It just
Right.
has the goal of I doesn't help either of us if we get into a relationship and nobody's happy. So
Absolutely.
if I can just tell it how it is right away, if I'm not feeling the connection, what have you, if I can say that right away, it may suck in the moment, but it's
Mhm.
going to save us possibly decades of stress and frustration.
Mhm.
And if everyone can get on that same understanding, that then I think people generally will just be not as worried about putting themselves out there because
Yeah.
it can be stressful, especially just depending on who you are. It can be especially stressful trying to really put yourself out there.
Absolutely, man. That happens often. And that's why, like, when the guy was pointing out right before we paused about having a list, I talk about that a lot. Like, if you're going to date intentionally, you probably would take the time to create a list of items. What I usually talk about is deal breakers, things that I know that, like, I can't tolerate, I can't deal with, I can't compromise on. And that can't be your entire list, right? I usually say maybe like up to maybe 5 to 7 items, no more than that. And then everything else, you got to be willing to compromise on. You got to be flexible because there's no perfect people, there's no perfect individuals. But a lot of us don't do that. We don't have those things already prepared. So naturally, when it comes time to sit down and like review that, whenever you're going on dates with people, we're probably wasting a lot of unnecessary time. And then again, we're not communicating those expectations to each other. So then people are just kind of guessing the whole time, which can create more anxiety because you're like, I don't know where I stand. I don't know if they want to be here. I don't know if I want to be here. I think what you're saying is also very important in kind of taking that time to reflect within, work on you, figure out what you want. So when you decide to date, hopefully intentionally, you'll be more likely to find what you're looking for because you were more thoughtful about it before you even started.
Yeah, I've had like more high school relationships where it's like you just jump in there because you're a stupid high schooler and
Yeah.
just makes decisions on a whim, doesn't actually think them through. And I've had my fair share of like issues and problems that arise when you do those things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just like
It happens, man.
I mean it's your time. I think that's like high school, college is your time to make mistakes, and as long as you're learning from them, there's no problem with like making those mistakes up front as long as you're like actually learning from them. So
Yes. That's the most important part. So that way, hopefully, you stop repeating the same decisions.
yeah.
And me pointing out the whole create that quality list and know what you're looking for, that's me trying to provide wisdom. If you know you want to be with somebody, if you know you want to get married, if you know you want to build a family one day, it sort of behooves us to then act intentionally. So make sure you're screening these people out based on what you know you need. And the first step is you got to know what you need. Because if you don't know, then you definitely can't explain it or express it to anybody else.